Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, dear students. I am Dr. Fatma Nasir and I hope you all are doing well. Today I will be discussing with you people about the great blood vessels of neck. So first of all we will discuss common carotid artery. There are two common carotid arteries in our neck, right and left. The right one arises from the brachiocephalic artery behind the right sternoclavicular joint, while the left common carotid artery arises from the arch of aorta in the superior mediastinum. You can also see in this diagram that this one is the right common carotid artery. It arises from this brachiocephalic trunk, while on the left side the left common carotid artery arises from the arch of aorta directly in the superior mediastinum. So the common carotid arteries of both sides, they run upwards through the neck under the cover of anterior border of sternocleidomastoid muscle, and this common carotid artery extends between this sternoclavicular joint to the upper border of thyroid cartilage. This is thyroid cartilage and this one is its upper border. So the common carotid artery extends between the upper border of the thyroid cartilage and the sternoclavicular joint. At the upper border of thyroid cartilage, the common carotid artery terminates by dividing into external and internal carotid arteries. So these are the two branches of common carotid artery, that is external and internal carotid artery. Carotid sinus and carotid body. At the point of division of internal carotid sinus and carotid body. At its points of division, the terminal part of the common carotid artery or the beginning of the internal carotid artery shows a localized dilatation. This localized dilatation is known as carotid sinus. The tunica media of the carotid sinus is thinner, but the adventitia is relatively thick and it contains numerous nerve endings which are derived from the glossopharyngeal nerve. The carotid sinus serves as a reflex presoreceptor mechanism, that is, a rise in the blood pressure causes a slowing of the heart rate and vasodilatation of the arterioles. Then we have carotid body. The carotid body is a small structure that lies posterior to the point of bifurcation of common carotid artery, and it is innervated by the glossopharyngeal nerve. Carotid body is a chemoreceptor which is being sensitive to excess carbon dioxide and reduced oxygen tension. In case of a carotid sinus hypersensitivity, pressure on one or both the carotid sinuses can cause excessive slowing of the heart rate, a fall in the blood pressure, and cerebral ischemia with fainting. So this is the cross section of the neck at the level of 6 cervical vertebra to show you the relations of common carotid artery. Here we have these common carotid arteries. Common carotid artery, it is embedded in a connective tissue sheath which is called carotid sheath. Throughout its course, the common carotid artery, it is related to the internal jugular vein and vagus nerve. So let's talk about the anterior relations of common carotid artery. Its anteriorly there is present, first of all there will be skin, then fascia, and we will be having different muscles naming sternocleidomastoid. This one is sternothyroid and sternohyoid. These are the muscles: sternocleidomastoid, sternohyoid, and sternothyroid, along with this superior belly of omohyoid muscle. These are present anterior to this common carotid artery. Then we talk about the posterior relations of common carotid artery. In the center you can see this is the 6 cervical vertebra and it is the body of the vertebra, and these are the transverse processes of cervical vertebra. Along with this foramen transverse cerium, which bears the vertebral artery on both sides. So if we talk about the posterior relations of this common carotid artery, we will be having the transverse process of the cervical vertebrae along with foramen transverse cerium and vertebral arteries. Plus you can see there are the muscles which are called prevertebral muscles, and this small structure is the sympathetic trunk on both sides. So these all are the posterior relations of common carotid artery, which include a sympathetic trunk, prevertebral muscle, and transverse process of the cervical vertebrae along with the foramen transverse cerium and vertebral artery. And then if we move further towards the medial relations of this common carotid artery, we will be having these esophagus and trachea, and if we move above the level of this 6 cervical vertebrae, we will be having larynx and pharynx. And you can see these are the lobes of thyroid gland. They are also present anteromedial to this common carotid artery. And if we talk about the lateral relations of this common carotid artery, you can see there is internal jugular vein, and posterolateral there is present this vagus nerve. And common carotid artery along its whole course, it is accompanied by these two structures, internal jugular vein and the vagus nerve. Branches of the common carotid artery. Apart from the two terminal branches, the common carotid artery gives off no branches. As I have already told you that at the level of upper border of thyroid cartilage, the common carotid artery terminates by dividing into external and internal carotid artery. External carotid artery. It is one of the terminal branches of the common carotid artery. It supplies the structures in the neck, face and scalp. It also supplies the tongue and the maxilla. The artery begins at the level of upper border of thyroid cartilage, and it terminates in the substance of parotid gland behind the neck of the mandible by dividing into two terminal branches, which include superficial temporal and maxillary arteries. ये इम्पॉर्टेंट वाइवा क्वेश्चन है, एक्सटर्नल कैरोटिड आर्टरी की टर्मिनल ब्रांचेस पूछी जाती हैं. दे आर सुपरफिशियल टेम्पोरल एंड मैक्सिलरी आर्टरीज. Close to its origin, the artery emerges from the undercover of sternocleidomastoid muscle, where its pulsation can be felt. At first, the artery lies medial to the internal carotid artery, but as it ascends in the neck, it passes backward and lateral to the internal carotid artery. During its course, it is crossed by the posterior belly of digastric muscle and the stylohyoid. This is the diagram which is showing the relations of the external carotid artery. So anteriorly, first of all, you can see this is the common carotid artery, this is internal carotid artery, and this one is the external carotid artery. So anteriorly, first of all, it is crossed by the sternocleidomastoid muscle, and you can see this is a nerve which is crossing this external carotid artery. This nerve is the hypoglossal nerve, and here is another muscle which is crossing anteriorly. This is the posterior belly of digastric muscle. This one is the anterior belly of digastric muscle. This is hyoid bone, and this is a pulley which is forming, and this one is the posterior belly of digastric muscle. So anteriorly, the external carotid artery is crossed by this posterior belly of digastric muscle, this hypoglossal nerve and the sternocleidomastoid muscle. And you all know this is the angle of mandible, this is the ramus of mandible, and on the lateral aspect of the ramus of mandible, this is the masseter muscle, which is a muscle of mastication. It is attached here, and you know behind this masseter muscle, this is the area where is where there is a parotid gland located. So you all know that in its course the external carotid artery enters into the substance of the parotid gland, which is not shown here. It is removed from here. So when it enters into the substance of the parotid gland, it is also crossed by the facial nerve. So these are the structures which cross anteriorly or anterolaterally to the external carotid artery. If we talk about the medial relations of this external carotid artery, it is medially related to the pharynx, the muscles of the pharynx including stylopharyngeus and the pharyngeal branches of the vagus nerve. They all are related medially to the external carotid artery. Now let's talk about the branches of the external carotid artery. As you all know, there are 8 alphabets used in the word external. Therefore, external carotid artery is having 8 branches. First of all, this is the common carotid artery. This one is external carotid and this is internal carotid artery. So we are discussing here the branches of external carotid artery. This external carotid artery first of all gives this superior thyroid artery. Then the other artery which it gives is this ascending pharyngeal artery. Then we have this artery from the external carotid artery which is called lingual artery. We have this facial artery, then this occipital artery, and then you can see that there are 2 muscles which are crossing this external carotid artery. One muscle is this that is extending from the styloid process to the hyoid bone. This is stylohyoid muscle, and the other one is this one which is posterior belly of digastric muscle. These are 2 muscles which are crossing anteriorly to the external carotid artery. So we were talking about the branches of the external carotid artery. The next branch of the external carotid artery is this posterior auricular branch. Then we have 2 terminal branches of external carotid artery. One is this maxillary artery and the other one is this superficial temporal artery. So these are the 8 branches from the external carotid artery. Superior thyroid artery is the first branch from the external carotid artery. It descends downward to the upper pole of the thyroid gland. This is thyroid gland. So the superior thyroid artery descends downward to the upper pole of the thyroid gland and it supplies the thyroid gland. Here it is accompanied by the external laryngeal nerve. This is a very important MCQ as well as viva question, that superior thyroid artery is accompanied by the external laryngeal nerve. Then the other branch from the external carotid artery is the ascending pharyngeal artery. It ascends upward and it supplies the medial wall of the pharynx. Then we have this lingual artery. As the name indicates, it is going to supply the tongue. Then we have this facial artery. This facial artery loops upward close to the outer surface of the pharynx and the tonsils. It lies deep to the submandibular gland and it emerges around the lower border of the mandible. It then ascends over the face close to the anterior border of masseter, and then the artery ascends around the lateral angle of mouth and it terminates at the medial angle of eye. It gives branches to the tonsil, submandibular salivary gland, and the muscles of the skin of the face. Then we have another branch from the external carotid artery which is occipital artery. This supplies the skin of the scalp. The next branch from the external carotid artery is the posterior auricular artery. It supplies the auricle and the skin of the scalp. Similarly, the superficial temporal artery also supplies the skin of the scalp. And the maxillary artery, you have already done with the maxillary artery, its course and its parts and the different branches from its 3 parts. You have already done with those branches. So that is all for the branches of maxillary artery. So So the external carotid artery, first of all, it gives off this superior thyroid artery which descends downwards to the upper pole of the thyroid gland. Here it supplies the thyroid gland, and this superior thyroid artery is accompanied by the external laryngeal nerve. This is a very important MCQ question, as well as it is a viva question, that superior thyroid artery is accompanied by the external laryngeal nerve. Then we have this ascending pharyngeal artery. It ascends upward and it supplies the pharyngeal wall. Then the lingual artery, as the name indicates, it supplies tongue. Then we have this facial artery. This facial artery loops upward close to the outer surface of the pharynx and the tonsil. It lies deep to the submandibular gland and it emerges around the lower border of the mandible. Then it ascends over the face, which lies close to the anterior border of the masseter muscle. Here you can see. Then the artery ascends around the lateral angle of mouth and it terminates at the medial angle of the eye. And the facial artery, it gives branches to the tonsil, submandibular gland and the muscles of the skin of the face. Then we have this occipital artery. It supplies the skin of the scalp. The posterior auricular artery supplies auricle and the scalp, as well as the superficial temporal artery. It also supplies the skin of the scalp. And then about the maxillary artery, its parts and its branches you have already studied. So that is all for the branches of external carotid artery. Now let's talk about the internal carotid artery. The internal carotid artery begins at the bifurcation of the common carotid artery at the level of upper border of the thyroid cartilage. It supplies the brain, eye, forehead and part of the nose. The internal carotid artery ascends in the neck, embedded in the carotid sheath with the internal jugular vein and the vagus nerve. At first it lies superficially and it then passes deep to the parotid gland. The internal carotid artery leaves the neck and enters into the cranial cavity by passing through the carotid canal, which is present in the petrous part of the temporal bone when we see the skull from the basal view. Then the artery passes upwards and forwards in the cavernous sinus. The artery then leaves the sinus and passes upward again medial to the anterior clinoid processes, which are a part of the sphenoid bone. The internal carotid artery then inclines backward and lateral to the optic chiasma, where it terminates by dividing into anterior and the middle cerebral arteries. Relations of internal carotid artery in neck. For the anterolateral relations, we see the artery below the digastric and above the digastric muscle. So, if we see the artery below the digastric muscle, it will be covered anterolaterally with skin, fascia, and the anterior border of the sternocleidomastoid muscle along with the hypoglossal nerve. And when we talk about the anterolateral relations above the digastric muscle, we will be having these structures. First of all, this styloid process and the three muscles which are attached to this styloid process, including styloglossus, stylopharyngeus and stylohyoid muscle. These three muscles which are attached to the styloid process, they are present anterolateral to the internal carotid artery. Along with these three muscles, there will be deep part of the parotid gland and the glossopharyngeal nerve and pharyngeal branch of the vagus nerve. These are the structures which are related anterolateral to the internal carotid artery below the level of digastric muscle. Then if we talk about the posterior relations of the internal carotid artery, there will be sympathetic trunk, longus capitis muscle, which is a prevertebral muscle, and the transverse processes of upper three cervical vertebrae. And medially, the internal carotid artery will be related to the pharynx and the superior laryngeal nerve, and laterally it is related to the internal jugular vein and vagus nerve. Branches of internal carotid artery. There are no branches in the neck, while many important branches are given off in the skull. And these branches include ophthalmic artery, posterior communicating artery, anterior cerebral artery, and middle cerebral artery. In this diagram you can see that this is middle cranial fossa, and this is the body of the sphenoid. This one is the body of sphenoid, and you all know that in the middle cranial fossa on each side of this body of sphenoid there is cavernous sinus located, and this is internal carotid artery which passes through this cavernous sinus. And as the internal carotid artery leaves the cavernous sinus, it gives off a branch which is ophthalmic artery, and you can see these are the structures here which are optic canals. So through this optic canal, the ophthalmic artery, which is a branch of internal carotid artery, it enters into the orbital cavity. While it enters into the orbital cavity, the ophthalmic artery along with other branches, it gives off a central artery of retina, which you have already studied that it is an end artery and it is the only blood supply to the retina. This is the anterior cerebral artery, which is a terminal branch of the internal carotid artery, and it is present in between the two cerebral hemispheres. It then ascends upwards, and this is the medial surface of the cerebral hemisphere. On the medial surface there is a structure which is called corpus callosum. So this anterior cerebral artery, when it ascends upward, it loops around the this structure which is called corpus callosum, and then it supplies the whole medial surface and the part of the supralateral surface of the cerebral hemisphere. Then the other largest terminal branch of the internal carotid artery is the middle cerebral artery. On the lateral surface of the cerebral hemisphere there is a sulcus which is called lateral sulcus. This middle cerebral artery runs in that lateral sulcus, and it supplies almost the entire lateral surface of the cerebral hemispheres, except a few areas which are not supplied by this artery, but the large portion of the lateral surface of the cerebral hemisphere is supplied by this middle cerebral artery. So up till now we are done with the common carotid artery and its two branches, that is external and internal carotid artery. Now comes the subclavian artery. There are two subclavian arteries, right and left subclavian arteries. The right subclavian artery, it arises from the brachiocephalic trunk just behind the right sternoclavicular joint. Then it arches upwards and laterally over the pleura, and then it is present in between the two muscles which are called scalenus anterior and scalenus medius muscle. And you can see this is the first rib, and at the outer border, this is the outer border of first rib. So at the outer border of the first rib, this subclavian artery, it becomes axillary artery. Similarly, we have the left subclavian artery. The left subclavian artery, it arises directly from the arch of aorta, and it same as that of right subclavian artery, it arches forward and laterally, and it also becomes axillary artery at the anterior border of the first rib. Parts of the subclavian artery. This is the scalenus anterior muscle which passes anterior to the subclavian artery on both sides, and this muscle divides the subclavian artery into three parts. The part of the artery from its origin to the medial border of this scalenus anterior muscle, this is called first part of the subclavian artery, and the part which is present behind the scalenus anterior muscle is the second part of the subclavian artery. And from the lateral border or the lateral margin of the scalenus anterior to the outer or the anterior border of the first rib is the third part of the subclavian artery. At the anterior border of the first rib, the subclavian artery becomes axillary artery. Same is the case on the other side. Now let's discuss about the branches of the subclavian artery. This is the scaleneus anterior muscle which divides the subclavian artery into three parts. So this is the first part of the subclavian artery. Let's have a look on the branches from the first part of the subclavian artery. First of all, you can see this is a branch which is arising from the first part of the subclavian artery, and it is ascending upward. On the other side, this is the branch which is ascending upward, and it is entering into the foramen transversarium of the cervical vertebrae. This is vertebral artery. So the first branch from the first part of the subclavian artery is the vertebral artery. Then you can see this is the other branch which is thyrocervical trunk. On the other side you can see this is the thyrocervical trunk. Okay, then the thyrocervical trunk further giving a suprascapular artery and the transverse cervical artery. These are the branches from the thyrocervical trunk, and they also include in the branches from the subclavian artery, the first part of the subclavian artery. Then we have this branch which is going medially. This is inferior thyroid artery. On the other side you can see this is inferior thyroid artery, and then we have this branch, this one which is called ascending cervical artery. Ascending cervical. So these are the branches from the first part of the subclavian artery. Then as you all know that the second part of the subclavian artery lies behind this scaleneus anterior muscle. So it will become almost this part. So the second part of the subclavian artery gives off costocervical trunk and superficial intercostal artery and deep cervical artery. Deep cervical artery. These are the branches from the second part of the subclavian artery. Then the third part of the subclavian artery usually does not give any branches, but in some cases the superficial cervical artery or the suprascapular artery, they arises from the third part of the subclavian artery. External jugular vein is formed behind the neck of the mandible by the union of posterior auricular vein and the posterior division of the retromandibular vein. ये आप लोग पहले भी बहुत दफ़ा पढ़ चुके हैं. It descends across the sternocleidomastoid muscle and beneath the platysma, and it drains into the subclavian vein. The tributaries of the external jugular vein includes posterior external jugular vein, transverse cervical vein, suprascapular vein, and the anterior jugular vein. So in this diagram you can see that this posterior auricular vein unites with the posterior division of retromandibular vein to form the external jugular vein. Then this external jugular vein descends downward across the sternocleidomastoid muscle, and then it drains into the subclavian vein. This is subclavian vein. Now in this diagram you can see the tributaries of the external jugular vein. The first tributary is this posterior external jugular vein, and then we have this transverse cervical vein, suprascapular vein, and then we have this anterior jugular vein, which is a tributary of the external jugular vein. Internal jugular vein. It is a large vein that receives blood from the brain, face and neck. It starts as a continuation of the sigmoid sinus and it leaves the skull through the jugular foramen. It then descends through the neck in the carotid sheath, lies lateral to the vagus nerve and the internal and common carotid arteries. It ends by joining the subclavian vein behind the medial end of the clavicle to form the brachiocephalic vein. Throughout its course, the internal jugular vein is closely related to the deep cervical lymph nodes. The vein has a dilatation at its upper end, which is called superior bulb of internal jugular vein, and the lower end of the vein also shows a dilatation, which is called inferior bulb of the internal jugular vein. Anterior relations of internal jugular vein. In its lower part, the internal jugular vein is crossed by the omohyoid muscle along with the sternohyoid and sternothyroid muscles. And in its upper part, the internal jugular vein is crossed anteriorly by this posterior belly of digastric muscle, occipital artery, and the muscles which are attached to the styloid process, including stylohyoid and styloglossus muscle. Along with these muscles, the internal jugular vein is crossed anterolaterally by the spinal part of the accessory nerve. So these are the structures which are forming the posterior relations of the internal jugular vein. The internal jugular vein will be located anterior to these structures. So these structures which are related posterior to the internal jugular vein, they include transverse process of cervical vertebrae and a few muscles including levator scapulae, scalenus medius muscle and scalenus anterior muscle. Along with these muscles, the posterior relations of the internal jugular vein include the cervical plexus, and this is the phrenic nerve, which is also related posterior to the internal jugular vein. Then there will be first part of the subclavian artery and the vertebral artery, which are also present posterior to the internal jugular vein. Now let's talk about the tributaries of the internal jugular vein. As I have already told you that the internal jugular vein is a direct continuation of the sigmoid sinus, and here in this diagram you can see at the upper end of the internal jugular vein there is a dilatation which is called superior bulb, and this is the lower end which is presenting a dilatation which is called the inferior bulb of the internal jugular vein. So let's talk about the tributaries of the internal jugular vein. First of all, the first tributary is the inferior petrosal sinus. Then we have pharyngeal veins, then common facial vein, lingual veins, superior thyroid vein and middle thyroid vein. These all are the tributaries of the internal jugular vein, and then ultimately the internal jugular vein drains its blood into right and left subclavian veins on both sides. Subclavian vein. Subclavian vein is the continuation of the axillary vein at the outer border of the first rib. It joins the internal jugular vein to form the brachiocephalic vein, and it receives external jugular vein. And it often receives thoracic duct on the left side and a right lymphatic duct on the right side. Internal jugular vein catheterization. There are two approaches for this catheterization. In posterior approach, the tip of the needle and the catheter are introduced into the vein about 2 finger breadths above the clavicle at the posterior border of the sternocleidomastoid muscle. While in case of anterior approach, with the patient head turned to the opposite side, a triangle is formed by the sternal and the clavicular heads of the sternocleidomastoid muscle, and the medial end of the clavicle is identified. The needle and the catheter are then inserted into the vein at the apex of the triangle in the caudal direction. So that is all for today. Thank you so much for listening.